Hey, everybody. And this is a Discord request. So, this is the first time we've done anything like this. And welcome to the Tiger Minor League Report podcast. And we started Discord, like 3 years ago when we were still at, technically, we're still at Motor City Bengals. And we just did it because I working at Prospects Live. They had a really lively humming Discord, and I didn't think there was anything like that in Tigerland, and there wasn't. And so it started off small, but in the last year or so, it's grown quite a bit. And between the chaos that Chris has started with, and I say this in a joking tone, and I mean it because it's so funny when like during the day, I don't check my phone very often because if I did, I would never get anything done. I would never get anything done because Chris started a trivia part of the Discord, and that thing is humming all day long. And so, we've met some really good people from there. Charlie, it comes to mind, Ghost Mav, Steve, and so there's a lot of cool people we've met on Discord, and
Everybody in there is cool.
yeah, everybody's in there is really cool. It's like Twitter, but less bullshit. It's just, it's just a place to talk baseball, and we keep it very, I really like the vibe in there. So shout out to Brandon, who asked us kind of like, there was another really good question in there too from yesterday that we'll probably maybe explore, but we're going to call this a Discord request. So if you have a request for us to do a topic, of course, give us a few shacklings, and we can do pretty much any topic really when it comes to baseball related stuff. Of course, if you want to talk rap, Chris is a very, very, very good at talking hip hop and that culture. And of course, I can go back and I can talk other things like Transformers and SNL, and there's other pop culture things. But that's not what you're listening to us for. You're listening to us for baseball content. And so, but shout out to Brandon for this idea. And that's a top 100 overview. So what Chris did was, if you're watching us on YouTube right now, but if you're listening at home, what Chris did was he took an Excel format or Google Sheets, took all the lists that came out because now all of them are out. So Baseball America,
except Fangraphs,
except for Fangraphs. Sorry, yeah, you're right, Fangraphs. And he took a list and did a composite of all of them where the Tigers are averaged at and where they rank on their own individual list. So Baseball America, Keith Law, MLB Pipeline, ESPN, aka Kylie McDaniel, and Baseball Prospectus.
Yeah. So, and what's kind of wild, what I realized from this is that basically the top 50 is almost an industry consensus. I don't know if I feel like the top 50 players on all 5 of those lists. There might be one guy missing, but then after that, then everybody sort of puts their own individual touch on it, and so you end up with like 160 names total. But yeah, I'm really like, it's pretty closely bunched together in that top 50, and particularly in the top 10 or so. So it gives you, I think, it's just one of those kind of wisdom and numbers types things where if you just throw everything together, you're going to get kind of closer to the truth, I think. And the truth is that the Tigers have a pretty damn good system, at least a pretty damn good top 10, based on what the industry thinks. What we do.
Yeah, and again, the biggest name, obviously, and there was a tweet about this that I'll just let me share that real quick because that's a little more prevalent to the conversation, and it's simply what is it's fact. It's not subjective. It's not us, homerism or anything like that. This is a matter of fact.
Oh, all right. Well, yes. So this is a Tigers player who has not been on the top 100 list. And it's probably going to be hard for people to see, but we can spell it out. And I put this out right before we went on air just so we could reference it. But it's basically in the last 3 seasons, right? So not a long time, but last 3 seasons, there have been 13 hitters age 22 or younger in Double-A who have put up a WRC plus of at least 130. So that's 30% above league average. 13 hitters. You got Brett Beatty. You got Matt Shaw, Tyler Black, Kyle Teal, Owen Casey, Roman Anthony, Carson Williams, Hao-Yu Lee. I'm sure I can't see the one below Hao-Yu Lee. Oh, it's Samuel Basayo, Ryan Clifford, Evan Carter, Thomas Sagasi, and James Triantos, I think it is. And 12 of those players have been on top 100 lists, including some top 5 prospects. And the one player who hasn't been on the top 100 list and wasn't mentioned, and players who got votes on Baseball America, which went up to, like 12 different people did 150 players. Wasn't mentioned in the top 200 to ESPN, which Kylie McDaniel did. Was Hao-Yu Lee. For whatever reason, Hao-Yu Lee is just a blind spot for and we know that stats don't mean everything. We always say don't scout the stat line, but there's nothing visually wrong with Hao-Yu Lee either, right? Like we watch him and go, well, there's no glaring issues here. So it's just one of those really weird things, and that I thought we should bring it up. I don't know, it just feels like, and you'll see, we have him ranked higher than anybody else in the industry on the Tigers list. So maybe we are just strangely biased here, but he's a name that's glaringly absent from the top 100 anywhere.
Take away. Okay, let's just be let's take away our bias because we are Tigers site. Okay. Here's the thing. It's the age he's doing this at Double A. In his first full season at Double A, the Eastern League, which is a very hard. It's not like a league where you're like gangbusters. I mean, it's not. It's a challenging league. It's a league that's been on. He just turned 22. Yesterday. He just turned 22. Okay, in his first full season at Double A, he has a WRC plus of 141. We just mentioned some of the stats. I think because he missed the last month of the season because the back injury and he got hit twice, and I think he has perhaps a little reputation of being a guy who doesn't take any crap from people. I don't really know what it is, but baseball. Here's the reason why, take away our homerism or whatever. You use stats all the time. You use and now in baseball it's advanced stats. So it's not just batting average and RBIs or anything like that. There's other things you can consider to make up a ball player. And he hits those stat lines. But the fact that he's not even mentioned on any, not even like a fart in the wind, it's just not even mentioned anywhere. And that to me is baffling. Like if you want to say, for example, somebody was asking about if I remember last year at some point somebody asked about how come Andrew Navigato's not a top prospect? Well, because of his age. He's obviously he is a guy. There's certain factors that play into it, but he's younger than his level indicated, and he was in his first full season in Double A, in a position where he played a solid position. He wasn't. No one's saying he's an all-star or anything like that, but those numbers are pretty damning to me, and it's almost like in the same line of Kerry Carpenter. When Kerry Carpenter started hitting home runs and what have you, we were still well, maybe the other shoe and the shoe never fell off. Yeah. But there was things there. You could say, okay, the swing mechanics have changed, those things like that. And Hao-Yu Lee, okay, maybe he might struggle with sliders, but he didn't. He played a whole season, almost the entire season. So that's where I like that. That's why I'm kind of confused by it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and other people have him on their list, and they talk about it. They talk about his skills, and they say it's that there's nothing really wrong there, right? Like he's probably a second baseman, probably can't do third base, but otherwise there's the exit velocity's there, the power's there, the hitting ability's there. It's just a strange thing. I guess the one thing you'd be worried about a little bit is injuries. He's had his season cut short a couple times now, but yeah, it's just tough to know if that's a real issue or it's just kind of bad luck to start his career.
Yeah. And again, will it matter if he goes and plays and hits 300 and becomes like a Billy Badass? No, it's not gonna matter at all.
No, yeah, I mean, it ultimately does not matter if you're ranked on the list or not. Maybe it's perfect for him because as you mentioned it, he's a very feisty young man, and maybe if he cares, he's gonna use it as fuel. But I don't know. It is what it is. We'll be talking about him when we do our Tigers top 5. But there are 6 Tigers on this top. This is a top 92 list as it works out. The way it is, where names who are on at least 3 of the 5 lists, and there are 6 Tigers on that list. And what's interesting is you could see the number 1 player on the list is Roki Sasaki, who's only on 3 lists: Baseball America, MLB, and ESPN. And incidentally, those are the 3 lists that a player has to be on, or he has to be on 2 of those 3 prospect lists to qualify for the prospect promotion incentive, wherein a team gets a draft pick if their player is up, for the full season and finishes, wins Rookie of the Year or finishes in top 3 in MVP or Cy Young voting. So they kind of had to put Sasaki on there. And Keith Law and Baseball Prospectus were like, all right, well, this is silly. He's not really a prospect. He's been a baseball player in Japan for several years. So they just kind of skipped over him. But that being said, then the number one prospect after that is Roman Anthony, who was on that list with Hao-Yu Lee. And numbers in AA were not quite as good as Hao-Yu Lee. So make of that what you will. Now he did move up to AAA, and he is younger. Then you got Walker Jenkins, who was drafted a couple picks after Max Clark 2 years ago. Dylan Cruz, who was drafted a couple picks ahead of Max Clark 2 years ago. And then Jackson Jobe, the number one pitching prospect consensus in baseball, if you're not counting Roki Sasaki, at number 5 overall. So I don't remember if Casey Mize got quite this high on the top 100 list. And I don't think Skubal did either. So this is probably the highest ranked pitching prospect for the Detroit Tigers ever. Maybe Andrew Miller got this high. We'd have to go back and look.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Chris, as you continue, because I can look real quick here.
Yeah, so Jackson Jobe is really good. We'll be talking about him again in our top 5 list, but certainly, one of the most decorated Tigers pitching prospects of all time. And the one thing, I guess, and again, I think we're going to go more into each players when we do the top 5 list, but I will just say that people need to remember to be patient with Jackson Jobe, right? He's incredibly talented, but we'll remind you that Justin Verlander was not Justin Verlander until about 2009. Even though he had thrown a no-hitter, he wasn't that dominant strikeout pitcher till his 4th full season. And you can say the same about Tarek Skubal, right? He wasn't really fully formed until the second half of 2023. And he came up in 2020? So it's going to take a couple of years, we think, for Jobe to really get to, reach his peak. But he's got that pure ability to be a pitcher who's in the conversation with those two guys.
So you're talking about, in terms of pitchers, the highest a pitcher. So MLB Pipeline had Casey Mize at number 7.
All right.
So Justin Verlander was number 8 as of 2000 in 2006. So
and it looks like Andrew Miller was number 10 before the 2007 season on Baseball America. I don't think Rick Porcello would have gotten that high, would he? Maybe Justin Turner? Not Justin Turner, Jacob Turner.
So I'm looking right now. So Jacob Turner was, in terms of team so I have this right here. So if you're looking at 2010, he got ranked 26. So he was on there for 3 years. So he then in 2011 made it to 21. Then in 2012, the last 22. Year he was on the list, 22.
Yeah, so MLB had him 15th. Yeah, so yeah, I'm looking Turner, Porcello.
Yeah,
none of these guys. This is the highest ranked pitching prospect the Tigers have had, as far as we can tell, ever.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's certainly noteworthy.
Prior to that, though, if you want to get before Justin Verlander, if you want to go in terms of like guys that have been ranked in terms of overall, you have to go back some ways. You have to go back to, let's see here. I'm make sure I have this correct, because I want to make sure I have this absolutely 100% with confidence. Justin Thompson was ranked in the 70s.
Yeah.
I want to make sure. No, I'm sorry. Mike Drumright was number 35.
Oh, the world famous Mike Drumright.
Yeah, Mike.
Not to be mean, I did notice that he was inducted into the Wichita State Pizza Hut Go Shockers Hall of Fame in 2015. So
wait, that's the name of the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I guess Pizza Hut needed to sponsor the Wichita State.
I'm not laughing at the Hall of Fame. That's an honor. That's really awesome.
Yeah, Wichita State's a great baseball program, and he just didn't work out for him in pro ball, which happens all the time. Hopefully, it doesn't happen.
It sounds like a Wesley Willis thing, though. Like,
yeah. But yeah, so anyway, Jackie Jobe, very good, very, very good. Interesting enough, Carson Williams, number 6 on this list, is a shortstop who was taken in the same draft as Jackson Jobe, I believe. And at the time, it was like, Marcelo Meyer, shortstop, Jordan Lawler, shortstop, Isaac Pacheco, shortstop. But Carson Williams, I want to say he was taken in the 30s of that draft, and he has just proven to be a tremendous athlete and lots of power. It is an interesting thing, though, because he is a guy who strikes out at a pretty hefty rate. Now, you can live with that, I think, as a shortstop, But I'm looking last year. So in Double-A at 21 years old, Carson Williams had a 142 WRC plus. So that's pretty damn good, right? 20 home runs, 33 steals, and 33 steal with 11% walk rate, but a 28.5% strikeout rate, which is, getting close to being untenable, but really good prospect. So Joe being ahead of him, not a big deal. Christian Campbell's a really interesting story. He was a guy that I think he's a 4th-round pick for Boston, but kind of came out of nowhere, hitting for power last year, and suddenly I think he was named the Eastern League MVP, wasn't he, over Gage Workman?
Correct, yeah.
It was either him or Anthony. I don't remember which one. But if you look at the rankings there, it's really interesting because you see he's 4th, he's 9th, he's 7th, he's 3rd, and then Kylie McDaniel has him 26th. And this will be really interesting because I read Kylie McDaniel's excerpt on him, and he said, and this is like a pure scouting thing because the numbers were outstanding, but he said there are scouts who think Campbell's swing is not going to work in pro ball at all. And so this will be or in the major leagues. And, I watched it and I couldn't, I'm not a swing doctor. I don't really know what's wrong there, but it'll be fascinating to see if that comes true. Because Kylie McDaniel's kind of going on a limb there. Sorry, take a little drink real quick.
No, that's okay. Maybe that's what maybe there's something out there about Lee about the same thing, perhaps.
It's possible. But everything I've read about him, it doesn't say anything. Like there's no. And with the Campbell thing, almost feels like you're really nitpicking a guy who's an elite prospect, and you're trying to find something. But I don't know. We'll see. There you go. Number 9 or number 8, Samuel Basayo, and this is an interesting comparison because he is kind of like Tyron Lorenzo in a lot of ways. A switch hitting catcher with power and patience, who may or may not stick behind the plate, and to see him as a top 10 prospect kind of gives you the idea of where Lorenzo could be at this time next year if he keeps hitting like he has been. So that's pretty exciting. Sebastian Walcott is an international shortstop for the Rangers, another very exciting prospect there. I haven't seen him play. Don't have a lot to say. Then you got Andrew Painter, who was kind of the top pitching prospect a couple of years ago, then blew out right in spring training, I think.
Yeah, spring training, yeah.
And Bubba Chandler, who was another pitching prospect. He was a 2-way player for the Pirates, and I remember watching him. I think he hit for the first half of 2022. He would have been down in low A at the same time as Jackson Jobe. I remember them facing each other, I think. But he's kind of gone to full-time pitching now and really exploded, as sometimes you expect from these super athletic guys. So another really nice pitching prospect for the Pirates. They've kind of, if you got Skeens and you got, I'm forgetting the name of Jared Jones and Bubba Chandler, that's a pretty nasty potential 1, 2, 3. So something exciting.
They also have a guy who doesn't throw very hard, but he has really good.
Thomas Harrington.
Yeah, Thomas Harrington. I saw for Altoona, pretty solid pitcher.
And he'll be down, I think, lower on this list. And then we have Max Clark at number 12. So second Tigers prospect, Max Clark. Nothing he can't do on the baseball field. Still think there's a ways to go for him to reach his ceiling, but pretty exciting. And you'll see that the rankings on him are a little bit varied too. Baseball America and Baseball Prospectus are a little bit skeptical for some reason. He's ranked, 22nd, 31?
Yeah. But
Keith Law, MLB, ESPN all have him as a top 10 prospect. So there's a small disagreements here on him, but still talking about an elite prospect. And we can keep moving. Kobe Mayo, I think Tigers fans might be familiar with him because there were lots of talk about, Skubal getting traded to the Orioles for him. He's a third baseman, first baseman, lots of power. Came up to the big leagues last year, was not very good at all, but he was a short sample, so you don't know what to say. Marcelo Meyer, another famous comparison for Jackson Jobe. Everybody wanted Meyer. I think probably us included at the time.
Yes.
And Jackson Jobe has kind of eclipsed him as a prospect, although some people still love him. Kylie McDaniel still has him number 4. As a shortstop who can hit. He's going to be coming up for the Red Sox soon. I was talking to you the other day. Like I saw an interview with him, and he did not look like a shortstop. It was just that he was in street clothes, but he looked like a guy who was owned a pizza shop to me. And you got Colt Emerson, who is very similar as a player, I think, to Kevin McGonigal, who is number 16. So you got your third prospect in the top 20 here. Emerson is he's in Seattle, a younger infielder with a really good hit tool. He's from Ohio. I remember our buddy Brian Sikowski was all over him. He loved him in that draft, and he went 22nd overall. And yeah, still very young. I don't think he's
actually getting an invite to big league camp too.
Yeah, it's impressive. I mean, he does a lot of the things that McGonigal does. He's got I'm looking last year between low A and high A. As an 18-year-old, he hit 263 with 50% walk rate, 4 homers, 15 steals, a 119 WRC plus in about 70 games. So like really exciting young hitter. But then everything we said about him is the same about McGonigal, except McGonigal's like a half year older. But McGonigal, one of the best batting eyes in all of minor league baseball, showed more power than people expected, not necessarily over the fence power, but the, underlying numbers. Stole 22 bases, hit over 300, walked 14.5% clip or 14% clip to an 8.5% strikeout rate. Is going to play on the infield. Just an outstanding prospect. And you'll see that reflected a couple places. Baseball Prospectus in particular has him ranked 6th, a top 10 prospect. And so does ESPN. I think they have him 10th, right? So
yeah,
some people are all over him. And again, everybody thinks he's a top 30 prospect. So it's pretty exciting.
It is weird, by the way, to see the contrast between Baseball Prospectus and Baseball America, because usually Baseball Prospectus is always, I trust Baseball Prospectus quite a bit as well, but usually some of the times they're within a certain distance from each other, and it doesn't seem to be the case here at all, which for Kevin McGonigal. And I mean, Baseball Prospectus has got a really high opinion of him, and as we do, and you'll discover on our top, of course, no spoiler alert, on top 5 of the list, but I don't know. It is. I always find it like with Kylie McDaniel too. It's always there's just like what I like about his list is that he isn't afraid to put his neck out there and do something a little different.
Yeah, and I think it's important to not I like when people have strong opinions that are different from the crowd. It's really easy to fall into groupthink with prospects.
Yes.
Where you go, oh, well, yeah, that guy's just an obvious top 20 prospect without and you don't look at it and go, okay, well, what makes him a top 20 prospect? And so I like it when guys stick their neck out. Sometimes it feels a little bit like they're doing it just to be different. But as long as they have good reasons for it, it's totally cool with me.
Yeah, or their agent told them to.
Well, yeah, I mean,
we might know somebody about that. Anyway, Chris.
Yeah, so we can we'll keep speeding along here. Jordan Lawler, very good young shortstop, keeps getting injured, has barely played. He's probably going to be up with the Diamondbacks this year if he can stay healthy. Noah Schultz, a lefty who gets comparisons to Randy Johnson because he's very tall with a really good fastball and a nasty slider. Tigers fans are probably going to get annoyed by him in a couple of years, but very, very good pitching prospect. Travis Bazzana, the number 1 overall pick last year, an Australian native, can really hit. He didn't have a great pro debut in the Midwest League, but you never think too much of that. It was fine. It wasn't like Charlie Condon had a really bad debut, but Bazzana was fine, and he's probably going to be annoying Tigers fans soon.
I was going to say he seems like the type that would be like Stephen Kwan, where he's just going to put the bat out or barrel everything up against the Tigers and hit gappers in Cleveland. He's going to be annoying. I already have a feeling.
Yeah, it's I don't know, but we'll see. Followed up by Leo Dallas DeVries, the number 1 overall or the number 1 ranked international signing from 2 classes ago, I think it was. Maybe, I guess if you count this year's class, then last year's class. And he's super young, shortstop. He may end up at second base or third base, but a lot of really interesting tools there. And I think he got up to the Midwest League too at his age. Dalton Rushing, the catcher that we kind of wanted from the Dodgers, but he was too highly ranked, I guess, and so they gave up Lorenzo, who is almost like Rushing in just about every way. They both have a big time power that neither of them chase. Neither of them. The only difference is Lorenzo swings and misses a little bit in the zone, and Rushing doesn't really. So he's a really interesting prospect.
Isn't Rushing also getting some time in the outfield too?
Yeah, they put him in the outfield because, and it's not that he can't catch. I think he's probably okay back there, but they have Will Smith signed forever, and they probably had another catcher, Danny. I don't know if they've forgotten who they had as their backup.
They have embarrassment of riches. So.
Yeah, the name Barnes sticks up for me for some reason, but yeah, so very good catcher. Matt Shaw, interesting. Another one of the guys from the 2023 draft who really rocketed through the minors, was very good. Cubs could be the Cubs starting third baseman this year if they don't sign Alex Bregman. We'll see. I think that's kind of the plan right now. But he's a guy. He was from Maryland. Got 2020 potential. Aiden Miller, another kid from the 2023 high school crop, and he was actually considered maybe the best pure hitter. Maybe not the best pure hitter, but one of the best hitters in that class, along with McGonigal. But he got hurt, and so he didn't play as much as a high school senior. And the Phillies got him in the late first round, and he really he really tore up low A. I think he came down to earth a little bit in high A last year, but again, it's he's 20 years old, so I think a pretty exciting prospect there. I don't know if he's going to stick at shortstop, but he did last year. Jason Dominguez, number 24. He's kind of famous at this point. Tigers fans got to see him hitch on his throw home that allowed the Tigers to score the winning run in the Little League World Series Classic or whatever it was, which is fun. And we saw Jason Dominguez 3 years ago in the playoffs, Somerset versus Erie, and he was not looking great in center field. I don't think he's a center fielder. I think he's a left fielder. But
super quick though.
He's a weird, like, short, powerful, squat, like Kirby Puckett body type. But that level of kind of twitchy athlete that I think it'll work. Emmanuel Rodriguez is a guy that's really interesting. He's always hurt, but he has a ton of power. He walks constantly, and he's a good center fielder. Who knows what kind of player he's going to be? He could be a monster. He could be a guy who can't stay healthy. I don't know.
Why is it with Twins prospects that can't stay healthy, Chris? I mean, honestly, isn't it just me, or is that just am I imagining that like these?
No, they've had a ton of injuries, and even not even just their prospects, right? Like Royce Lewis is constantly injured. Alex Kirilloff got injured so often he had to retire.
Buxton.
Buxton's constantly injured, and Carlos Correa is always injured. So it's Brooks Lee is always injured. It's I don't know. It's tough out there, but again, he's there's some good prospects in the AL Central. So just remember the name. JJ Weatherholt was a guy who was, speaking of injuries, he was a guy who may have gone first overall last year, but was hurt. He's had multiple hamstring injuries, I think. Still a good prospect. We got to see him on Palm Beach, down in the Florida State League last year toward the end of the season. It's a really good hitter. Probably not going to stay at shortstop at the highest level, but worth a shot for now. Bryce Eldridge, he was a two-way player too, like 6'7", but the Giants were just like, nah, just play first base. And he had an awesome first season in pro ball, hit a ton of home runs, got to the Arizona Fall League. May have, if he had stayed there the whole time, he may have kept Briseño from winning the Triple Crown, but he didn't. But yeah, that's he was the one who got. I think we saw a scouting report, right, of him that compared him to Dave Kingman.
Yeah,
which is like, well, that's fine. I think Kingman hit a ton of home runs. There's people didn't like the strikeouts, but whatever. Chase Dollander was the heading into the draft a couple of years ago was the top pitching prospect, and then Paul Skeens just kind of exploded. But he's still a very highly regarded pitcher. Has basically everything you want.
So weird to see him too when he pitched for Dayton against the West Michigan. He got hit. Like I remember Campos hit I think it was a triple off of him or something like that, or something to that effect. And then he just, I'm sorry, I was getting, I'm getting confused with the guy from the Reds,
Rhett Lauder.
Sorry, I was getting no, never mind. I was getting my
we didn't. I think because Dollander's in the Rocky system, so right. we didn't see him until Double A.
Yeah, that's my bad.
That's all good. Josue DePaula is a Dodgers outfielder who I don't know. I think he may have gotten up to Great Lakes the second half of the season, but I don't think we got to see him. But exciting young outfielder. Ethan Salas, another. Go ahead.
DePaula, I was going to say, DePaula was supposed to play. I was going to go to a Midland game in, I think it's July.
Yeah.
Late July, early August, but got rained out.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. You told me to get some notes for him. That's what it was. Yeah,
because I'm looking at his stat right now. So 19 years old. He split his time evenly between low A and high A. In high A Midland, he hit 254 with 4 home runs, 13 steals, but a 22% walk rate to a 17% strikeout rate. That's a walk rate that's almost a bit too high. You worry that maybe he's a little passive, but still, I mean, for a 19-year-old kid in high A, that's pretty outstanding.
Speaking of good kids in high A.
Yeah, Ethan Salas was another, of the top international prospects for the Padres. Really, he's another guy that they pushed really fast, and I think he was also in the AFL last year. There was some kind of regression last year, I would say. At this time last year, he might have been a top 10 prospect in some places, but he didn't have a great year. But he's what, 19 now, maybe? I don't know.
He's still 18. He doesn't turn 19 until June.
Yeah, so I mean, he's crazy young, left-handed hand catcher, all the defensive tools, power potential, might hit. It was prospect development is not linear. Everybody says it. It's true.
Well, he'll be the next Benito Santiago, who
there you go.
With the Padres forever is a good catcher.
Yeah, And I think he may have had a 15 steal season one time, Benito Santiago. Not that it matters, but then you got some more 2024 draft picks. Chase Burns was the Tennessee and Wake Forest ace. Throws really hard, has a nasty slider. There's some questions about how hittable the fastball is and how many strikes he's going to throw. It's kind of a violent delivery, but big arm. Charlie Condon, yeah. Now this is what I was talking about. Had a brutal pro debut. Now you don't ever want to make too much of it. He was a guy that was just hit tons of homers for Georgia. Was hitting for average. Just great college season. Came into pro ball for Colorado. Went to high A, and he hit 180 with one home run, a 3.7% walk rate, and a 31.2% strikeout rate in 25 games. That's
yeah.
Again, you don't make too big of a deal, a guy coming after a long college season, but that was pretty alarming pro debut. So we'll see what happens with him this year.
Was he also? He was projected to be number one at one point too, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was in the conversation to go number one. I think he went third. I think Burns went second, and Condon went third. I don't. I'm looking. Yeah, he went third overall. So again, who knows? He was getting kind of Chris Bryant comparisons. So we'll see. After him, Kumar Rocker. Speaking of a big time name, a guy that was all over the map, potential top 10 prospect, got drafted. Mets didn't like what they saw, had to go to indie ball, got drafted again, then got hurt. It just a long and winding road. But then he popped up again last year with just a filthy stuff. Upper 90s fastball, a plus slider, looked really, really good. And he's just a guy I think that is tough for people to rank because they haven't seen him actually produce in pro ball much. But the pure stuff is dynamite. Nick Kurtz, I think we missed our chance to see Nick Kurtz. He was the A's first rounder last year. I think he skipped from low A right to double A, right past Lansing. So we missed it. But there's, Wake Forest, talk about him being a plus hitter with plus power. Got to be as a first baseman, but so far so good.
Yeah, there's some questions about his. I remember we talked about this in the draft show. There's some questions about his holes in his swing, right?
Yeah, well, and we had heard something that he didn't hit at all against velocity, but his pro debut was pretty nice. He hit. It's only 21 games. It's kind of the opposite of Condon, right? He hit 368 between low A and double A with a 24% walk rate and 20% strikeout rate. But again, small samples. Colson Montgomery, I believe, is the first player here ranked 35th who's not on one of the lists. So the top 34 were all top 100 prospects. Colson Montgomery is not on Keith Law's list. And that's, he was a high-ranking infielder. There was some hope that he's kind of a Bryce Rayner, if you will. A big, tall, left-handed hitting shortstop with power. And it was going well for him up until last year. I think he kind of hit a brick wall there in AAA. And it seems to be pretty doubtful that he's going to stick at shortstop now. So he's more of a third baseman with some questions about his hitting ability. But I think he's young enough. I want to say, I don't know if he's 22 yet. I'm looking right now. Yeah, he's 22. But I'm looking. So yeah, he hit 214 in AAA last year, which is not ideal, right? 88 WRC plus, but hit for 18 home runs, 12% walk rate, 29% strikeout rate. So some concerns there, but I think people are giving him a little bit of grace because he's still relatively young. And then there's Rhett Lauder, who you mentioned just a minute ago.
Yeah, we got again. He just looked out. He just looked out of place when I saw him against the Whitecaps. The Whitecaps hit him pretty hard. Then he at every level he struggled, but then he just would figure it out, and then he ended up making the major league roster. So I mean, I think he got called up at. So
yeah, he made 6 starts in the big leagues.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So I don't know. Like it just seemed like he just he's a guy who doesn't give up a lot of walks in the minors. Yeah. Like he's good with good command.
The book on him was that he has solid to good stuff, not crazy stuff, but just really knows how to pitch and really mixes and matches and has good command. Yeah. And I mean, that was the case up until the big leagues when he started walking some guys, but he managed to limit the damage. It was like a 1.70 ERA, even though he walked a lot of people, didn't strike many people out. But yeah, like he's a very high floor pitching prospect, I would say. Like you feel comfortable with him being a number 4 at least. There might not be much more than a number 3 starter in there, but we'll see. And right after him is Hagen Smith, who was the second pitcher, I believe, taken in last year's draft, the lefty out of Arkansas.
Yeah,
I want to
Arkansas.
say.
Yep.
He's got a really nasty fastball slider combination, really low arm slot. He's had Tommy John surgery already, though. Not necessarily a third pitch, but he, right now he might not need it. So another nasty southpaw for the White Sox. We're going on. Kyle Teal, who was a guy who was rumored that the Tigers were going to take in 2023. Many fans did not like that. And of course, the Tigers did not take him, but he's turned out to be a very nice professional baseball player, a catcher, a very aggressive hitter, but a pretty darn good one. And he was a key piece of the Garrett Crochet deal going from Boston to the White Sox. So another AL Central prospect here, followed by Jacob Wilson, who was another 2023 draft pick who got to the majors very quickly. We saw him in Lansing at the end of 2023, and I remember Jackson Jobe striking him out, which is a pretty big feat because Jacob Wilson struck out like 6 times in college baseball. Yeah. He's an extreme bat to ball guy, and with pure hitting ability that he's kind of, you'll see people rank him as the number 1 hitting prospect, like in terms of hit tool in the minors, followed by Kevin McGonigal. And Wilson doesn't walk much, and he hasn't tapped into much power, but he's a big kid who should hit for some power down the road, and he can play shortstop. So he's an interesting prospect, but it's a strange profile.
The thing that strikes, the thing that stands out to me at AAA last year, Sacramento, or was it? Yeah, I don't know. Was it AAA Sacramento? AAA, regardless.
He'll be back there.
Yeah, he'll be back there. Yeah.
One way or
another. His strikeout rate was 4%. And I'm not talking like some sample size of like 10 games or anything like that. Over 100 plate appearances in the Pacific Coast League. That's astonishing, Chris. I mean, this is a guy who, when we saw him play in Lansing, it was just loud contact. And you're right. When you look at the game, like we look at him in high A that year. Let me just put this in the perspective. He an 88 at bat. Jobe was one of only people. He only struck out 10 times, and 88 at bat or 99 plate appearances when he was in Lansing. This is that was the only time he had a strikeout percentage over 10. I'm sorry. He had it in Double A little bit, but still.
No. Yeah, it's an extreme contact guy, which is funny that he's right next to Jack Caglianone, because he is also an extreme contact guy, but nobody has any idea if it's going to work in pro ball because he swings at everything. He's a guy that he's an enormous, very famous college player, left-handed pitcher who throws 100, but he also has some of the highest exit velocities in college baseball last year. Just enormous kid with huge power. And what people don't know is he going to be like a Vlad Guerrero Sr. type of hitter who can just put the barrel on anything and it doesn't matter? Or are hitters going to be able to get him out because he chases everything? It's going to be really fascinating.
It really reflects on the list too. Look at MLB and ESPN; they have him highly ranked, whereas Baseball America and Keith Law are kind of more conservative with them. Even Baseball Prospectus, I think, puts him right in the middle.
Yeah, so MLB 22, ESPN 29, Baseball Prospectus 34, Baseball America 63, and Keith Law 60. So yeah, I mean, there's some question marks that he has to answer by playing. And we'll see. And it might not be something that even happens until AAA. But if he hits, he's going to be like a 40 home run, left-handed hitting first baseman. If he does it, who knows what's going to happen. Poor Jefferson Cuero, number 41. We saw his only game last year. We were down in Toledo for the Mud Hens home opener. He's a highly ranked catcher in the Brewers organization. Good two-way player.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh,
I remember how he got on base, but there was a pickoff attempt, and he dove into first base and hurt his shoulder, and that was it. The only game he played all year. We saw
total labium.
Yeah. He got one plate appearance and he walked, and then immediately tore his shoulder. I think it was Matt Manning pitching.
Yeah, Matt Manning made the opening day start. Yeah.
So yeah, poor guy, but he's still considered a highly ranked prospect. And like I said, he in 2023 he hit 262 with 16 home runs in Double A as a 20-year-old, and he's considered a potential plus fielder. So that's a pretty nice mix there. You just waiting to see what happens to him after missing a whole year. After him, what do we have? We had Quinn Matthews.
Sorry.
Drake Baldwin, another catcher. He's a guy who moved up a lot in the offseason. I think the Brave system He's a guy who's always been able to hit fairly well, but then he answered some questions about being able to catch. And so, again, catching is very valuable. There's a lot of catching on the list this year.
More so than ever to me, at least.
Yeah, definitely. You follow him with Quinn Matthews, who's a lefty who he was one of the two Matthews people who blew up last year. Him and Zebby Matthews blew up for the Twins, and Quinn Matthews blew up for the Cardinals. I think he may have led minor league baseball in strikeouts last year. He's another, like I said, another lefty who's got some interesting stuff, but I think it's more of like a back end starter. Then you got Jesus Made. People love the name because it looks like Jesus made, of course.
Yeah.
Really highly touted young man. You'll see he's ranked 17th to Baseball America. Everybody else has him in the 30s, 40s, 50s. But Baseball America is going on a limb here because he's got a ton of potential, but he's only been in the Dominican Summer League. He hasn't even played stateside yet. So that's a really aggressive ranking, but he's the sort of guy who could be number one prospect in baseball at this time next year. Thomas White, one of the Marlins' two young starting pitchers they drafted a couple years ago. The other one, what was his name?
Oh, you talking about the guy from Minnesota?
I think he's from Washington.
Oh, I thought you were talking about
Noble Meyer.
Oh, who's the guy? The guy that was from Minnesota that the Marlins drafted?
Oh boy, I don't remember.
Yeah, you know what? Hold on, I'll look that up real quick because I remember I thought I was sworn the Marlins drafted a guy in the top 10 that was a starter that was Max Meyer.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's
2020. Yeah, that's
a couple years back.
Yeah.
Thomas White and Noble Meyer were both highly ranked high school pitchers. Noble Meyer was the more highly touted from, I think, Washington, and Thomas White was a lefty from Massachusetts, and White was just much better in pro ball. They both pitched in low end, and they both got promoted to high A, and I don't think Meyer was close to ready. And I actually saw him. I don't know if you were at the game or not, but in West Michigan, he pitched against the Whitecaps, and he struggled mightily. He couldn't throw his fastball for strikes. He showed like a promising breaking ball, couldn't land it. But Thomas White, I actually didn't get to see him, but he threw a lot more strikes, had a lot better results last year, and so I think he's the more highly touted now. Brandon Sprout, I think he was a reliever at Florida, or he was started at some, and he was one of those guys who always had a great arm, but just didn't have great results, and then he got into pro ball, and it kind of worked out, and so now he's one of the Mets' better prospects. At least he was with the Mets. He got traded. I don't remember.
No, one of my favorites right here, Cam Smith, a guy.
There you go.
Yeah, this is a guy. If you look at the list, Baseball Prospectus has a number 20, and Cam Smith was going to hit, and I knew he was going to hit. He had that vibe to him, and sure as you know what, it happened. I mean, he got off to a really, really good start. I think what was it? I would have sworn let's see here if I got the memory serves me correct. I think we might have saw. No, we were supposed to see him at South Bend. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's possible. We wanted it. We were hoping to get to South Bend last year. We didn't, but he was there for only 12 games before he moved up to Double A.
I mean, he hit 300 everywhere he went except for Double A, and he got to Double A before with the last 5 games of the season. Still hit 263, and very small sample size, but the flat out can make really good contact, and that again, that was one of those picks where. He's now in Houston. And he's part of the Kyle Tucker deal, and that's a guy that I think really helps Houston's farm system, which was kind of shallow.
Yeah, he's their number one prospect pretty easily now.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. There's some people that there's a lot of belief in the bat, the power potential, and the hitting ability. There's a questions if he's going to stick at third base or if he has to go to right field. Either way, I don't think it'll be a big deal. Third base will probably be preferable, but the power is going to play probably in either position. Luke Keeschel was a pick out by the Twins. Ended up having an outstanding year last year until they actually planned to have him have Tommy John surgery. So they knew he needed it, and they gave him, I think, like the final month of the year off. But just an awesome season.
Jet Williams, who seems like he's been in the system forever.
Yeah, he's kind of a McGonagall-esque type. His main skill is getting on base. He walks a ton, works long at bats. He plays shortstop and center field. Pretty good prospect, but I don't know. I don't know if there's a ton of ceiling there. Cole Young, another infielder for the Mariners, kind of, not quite as highly touted as Emerson, but solid player. Zahir Hope is a big riser. You see him; he's ranked 8th to Baseball Prospectus. Everybody else has him in the 50s. He he's I think he was 19. He actually was drafted by the Cubs and then traded to the Dodgers in the Michael Busch deal. And he's got plus to plus plus speed, insane raw power for a kid his size. And he's baseball prospectus, I think might think he can stick in center field. I've heard other people say he probably can't, but the tools are pretty explosive for a young kid. Cooper Pratt, shortstop in the Brewer system. He's a guy that in the draft, it was one of those situations where I thought for sure he was going to go to school because it was like he was going to get picked in the first 3 rounds. And then I think he lasted like the 7th or 8th round and the Brewers took him. And sure enough, he's been a very good defender and he's got some hitting potential for sure. I think last year in his first full pro season, hit 277 with 8 homers and 27 steals while playing competent shortstop. So impressive player. Chase DeLauder, outfielder who can't stay healthy, but when he is healthy, he hits a lot. In Cleveland system, Tink Hintz, another guy who is really good stuff in the Cardinal system, but doesn't like. There's still no kind of consensus if he's going to be a reliever or a starter because he hasn't pitched much. You got.
I'm surprised.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say about Tink Hintz is again the contrast in WIS, but I don't know. Like he has the Cardinals have a weird way with developing pitchers lately. It seems like they haven't had like a real knack for these guys staying healthy either.
Yeah, and that's I don't know. I think he's a guy that's probably very divisive in various front offices and scouting room, like where people rank him. Some people probably love him because the stuff is like frontline stuff. It's just he's not a terribly big guy and he hasn't pitched much. Angel Janao is another of Cleveland's never-ending supply of switch hitting defensive infielders. Alejandro Rosario I feel like he was a pitcher at Miami. We're kind of getting to the list where I don't have a terrible great grasp, but he was.
I was gonna say if we want to go with some of the Tigers too at some point.
Yeah, I guess we could skip over these guys, but I would say Rosario I think is in Texas's system. We did see Moises Ballesteros in South Bend and immediately thought, boy, this kid can hit, but he's a bowling ball and he might not have a position. He catches, but
he kind of reminds me of the catcher in Toronto.
Alejandro Kirk.
Yeah, kind of has that same build to him, but he can. Framing wise, he wasn't really good of a framer behind the plate. He just a couple times didn't. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he drop a couple times? Like he.
It wasn't good back there.
No.
But he can hit. And then you got Blake Mitchell, Alex Freeland, shortstop in the Dodger system. Yarlin Susana, very hard throwing pitcher in the National system who came over in the Juan Soto deal, I believe, from the Padres. Edgar Cuero, the other Cuero, he's in the White Sox system now. He was another catcher. He was in the Angel system. They traded him. I forgot for whom. And then we got Bryce Rayner, finally another Tiger, number 62 overall. So hopefully you guys weren't too bored by me talking about every other prospect. But yeah, Bryce Rayner, again, hasn't played at all. But the pre-draft scouting reports were so strong that he is a consensus. Like he's ranked 60th, 70th, 53rd, 79th, and 56th. That's a pretty tight, grouping for a guy who hasn't played.
I'm a little miffed why ESPN doesn't have Lazaro ranked at all.
Yeah, he was. Well, I think if he was in like the 120 range for Kylie, I didn't read. He didn't have an example or a reason for not having him ranked. But so Lorenzo is 64th. In between him is Jason Churio, Jackson Churio's little brother. But yeah, Lorenzo, you see him ranked 69th, you see him ranked 47th, you see him ranked 82nd and 58th, and then not ranked by McDaniel. And that may just be his belief that maybe he just doesn't think he can catch. And which
that's fair.
Which is it is fair, but even if he doesn't catch, his power and his patience would make him a pretty darn good first baseman too. So I don't know, but like I said, he didn't give us a reason. And then you got some other people: Lazaro Montes, Kevin Alcantara, Franklin Arias, Felanin Celestin. Couldn't tell you a thing about him. Justin Crawford, Carl Crawford's son. Demetrio Crisantes is a crazy. I think he walks just constantly and he hits. Xavier Isaac is kind of a comparable as a first baseman to Lorenzo, except he strikes out a lot more. So whatever. Enrique Badfield, a very, very fast young man, but you see he's only made 3 lists. We're getting to that point now where some people like people and other people don't. Travis Sikora, hard throwing pitcher. Braden Montgomery, a draft pick from last year, also traded from the Red Sox to the White Sox. Caden Dana, the pitcher for the Angels. Connor Griffin, interesting to see him. He was drafted ahead of Bryce Rayner, but he's behind him on most prospect lists, or at least on the consensus prospect list. That's, I think, because he's in the 80s to ESPN and Baseball Prospectus. Owen Casey, a Cubs outfielder from Canada. Braden Taylor, TCU's finest third baseman. He's on in the Rays system now. Cade Horton, who was a top 20 pitching prospect for the Cubs the year before, but he had a really rough year. I think his stuff backed up. I don't think he was terribly healthy.
Yeah, well, I saw him pitch for Iowa a couple times, and I wasn't blown away or anything.
Yeah, it was, he was a guy that blew up in the College World Series basically a couple of years ago, and because he had been injured in college, and it wasn't great for him last year. The walks, I'm looking at his AAA ERA was 7.5. He was, he's injured. He only threw 34 innings total, so some concerns there. And then right after him, Josue Briseño, the final Tigers prospect on the list consensus. He's only on 3 of the 5 lists, but that was all we'd asked for. Not on Baseball America, not ESPN. 80th overall prospect. That gives the Tigers 6th on this consensus list, which is, I believe, probably tied for the most. I actually didn't go through and look by the teams, but and then there were 2 more players. Jace Young made one list, and Jaden Ham made another list. So 6 consensus top 100 prospects, 8 guys on a top 100 list. It's the best top 100, or the best the Tigers have ever done on a top 100.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And if you want to look at, so one of the things we can share too, because there was a comment, by the way, shout out to the gentleman's name who gave us a comment about kind of verifying what we were saying the last couple of podcasts. So the Tigers when Tom Monahan bought the team, and this was a gentleman who was the editor for the Ypsilanti
Press,
Ypsi Press, mentioned how Monahan cut all the farm resources and essentially was just basically left it bare bones. And that's what caused that downfall of the Tigers. If you look at the decline from 1981 on, I mean, I know Monahan bought the team, I think, in 83, 84 when they won the World Series, but it is just down. I mean, it is like just something like you just whatever they're stripped for parts essentially, which, and then, I mean, and it also makes sense too. I mean, the Tigers were involved in collusion in 85, 86 with on purpose with Jack Morris, Kirk Gibson, Lance Parrish, Tommy Brookins, Mark Salas, a former catcher who was a journeyman catcher. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense, and it seems kind of ridiculous, but the quality of your farm system is a direct output for how much you care about it, how much resources you give to it, and they're quality scouts in every organization and guys pulling, doing hard work. But if the organization isn't all aligned and the type of players they like and what they want and how they want to develop players and knowing what works and what doesn't, then things are going to go rough for you. And we saw that for the Tigers for a fair amount of time. Under Dave Dombrowski, he was terribly, successful. I can't argue with his philosophy, but he treated the minors purely as a means to get more major league talent. I mean, you can count the number of players that they really kind of developed and graduated to regulars on one hand. Basically, it's Verlander, Porcello, Avila, Castellanos. I mean, I guess Granderson, but they traded him away. So, yeah, they just used the farm system, kind of as currency, and that's fine. But you can do that and supplement your big league team. And we've seen teams like the Dodgers do that constantly, and I think that's what the Tigers is where they're headed. They're gonna be a team that develops players from within and uses them to get big league pieces. We just haven't seen them really do that second part yet. But yeah, the resources are finally there again, and you're starting to see the fruits of the labor.
Yeah, and there's what's funny is I was looking at some of the old prospect lists there. I was looking at a list where they had a guy by the name Cam Smith, who was a top 10 Tiger prospect. It was a pitcher.
Interesting. So
I'm just trying to figure out if it was related to anything related to Cam Smith.
Cam Smith.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, here's an example of the top 10 baseball top 10 Tiger prospects in 1995. So it just gives you an example of, by the way, the Baseball Cube is one of my favorite websites ever. I love this website. I love this website. And look at this list here. So top 10, and of Tony Clark was the only one in the top 100. Look at the rest of the list. outside of Bobby Higginson, Jose Lima,
Justin Thompson,
I have no
yeah,
idea.
you could argue. I mean, Thompson ended up having a great 1 year, and if he had stayed healthy, he would have been probably a very good pitcher. But yeah, it wasn't a great list, obviously, but it's also a reflection of kind of where prospect lists have come. Because Higginson probably should have been a top 100 prospect given what he did in the majors.
Yeah. Also, I have no idea who Jason Bass is, but Jason Bass is a 5'7" outfielder.
Jason Bass.
Bass.
Jason. Yeah. Wonder if he's related to Kevin Bass. Oh, there's another Jason Bass. Oh no, that's interesting. There's a Jason Bass playing right now in Mexico.
Interesting.
Bass on base. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, hopefully that, I don't know if that provided any entertainment for people at all, but going through, a top 100 list to show where the Tigers are ranked and how they compare and looking at the rest of baseball, I think we talked about before, you've got two excellent young position player prospects, the best pitching prospect in baseball outside of Roki Sasaki, another kind of an enigma, but a guy who in Bryce Rayner could be a top 10 prospect if he hits, basically, and two really interesting power hitting catcher / first baseman toward the bottom of the list. It's a really nice collection of prospects to have. The only thing, I think I mentioned this the other day, the only thing, if you wanted to get greedy, maybe another high upside pitcher in the top 100, but they did have Ham on one list. So yeah, the Tigers fans have nothing to complain about the farm system right now.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm glad we did this request was simply, although I think I got the name wrong. Actually, I went in there and Brandon's like, I didn't request this. I'm like, okay, well, somebody did. Whoops. But either way, I think it's important to mention. Here's the thing too. Like we get one of the things I liked about working for Prospects Live was an opportunity to look at other farm systems objectively. Like I got a chance to really dive into the Pirates quite a bit, and it gave me a perspective on as a better evaluator, or whatever my title is, if you will. And I really like that. I like the fact that I was able to, for example, another guy I'm a big fan of is Charles
McAdoo,
who's in Double-A right now for Toronto, who I got a chance to watch him play for Altoona. Really, I don't think he's long term is going to be a third baseman, but he's a guy who can hit. Where he will hit, I don't know yet. But either way, it's good if you love baseball. Looking at other prospects and other systems actually just helps you enhance yourself a little bit better, and just really gives that perspective. Where I mean, for example, it gives us perspective to say, okay, the Tigers have come this far that they have these guys ranked for a reason. It's not no longer, you can say what you say about Keith Law and how he hates Tiger prospects, but facts are facts. I mean, he has 7 of them this year, but Keith Law has every right to do that because the Tiger system has not been traditionally good. We mentioned this a couple days ago on one of our recordings that in 2015 they had nobody, zero in the top 100.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe Eric M was the one who asked it, but I don't know. So sorry if it's somebody else. Eric M did ask the fun question about potentially looking at big leaguers and grading them like we would prospects, which is fun. But yeah, I don't know. Just to your point about, we like to try to pay attention to other prospects too. We can't obviously give them as much attention as we do the Tigers because we just don't have that much time. But when we're watching the Tigers, we see these guys a fair amount, and in person too. So whenever we go to a game, we like to know, okay, this guy's a good prospect for this team. Let's pay attention to him. But we also like to keep an open mind and say, hey, that guy, he's not on a prospect list, but he looked pretty damn good today. And I think we're okay at that. We find guys that we like, and they end up showing up on lists sometimes, and sometimes they don't. But I don't know. To your point, it is. I think it's good to know where the Tigers stack up against the rest of baseball. And I think people would argue, anybody who does this full time would argue that this is not the best collection of top 100 talent ever. But usually that comes down to whoever's at the top, right? So a couple of years ago, you had the top of the list was like Shohei Ohtani, Ronald Acuna Jr., Vlad Guerrero Jr., Fernando Tatis, and Juan Soto, right? Like it was just like there were like 5 generational talents there. and there might not be one of those guys this year, but the rest of the list I think is pretty good.
Yeah, it is really. I don't know. Like I said, it's. Well, you get a chance if you're gonna watch another. While you're watching the Tigers play, or you're watching the Erie Seawolves play or Toledo play, there's a guy that says like, "Wow, it stands out." Just take a note, and then that way, when somebody brings up a trade conversation, you know your stuff. So I don't know. It's you nerd out with us, but at any rate, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening, and again, thank you for subscribing to our Patreon if you have so already. You can join the link in the script, in the link to the description below. You could also donate if you like. That would help us go a long way with everything that costs for the website and more. And then we're going to be writing up our reports here shortly, but we have one more video to do, 5 through 1, which we'll probably be posting some point in the next couple days or so.
It'll be posted tomorrow.
Yes.
The article will be.
Yes.
I don't know when the video will be, but
maybe tomorrow or Thursday, depending. Yeah. So as a time recording.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm game to do it, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I should be more likely to. But thanks so much for watching. And like I said, if you have requests for us, like specifically those few bucks, shackles, if you will. I mean, we're paid mercenaries at this point. We're trying to be. So they'll go a long way. And if you're listening at home, subscribe to our channel. If you're like an audio listener, but you want that visual effect, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good evening.